me switch my... Oh, I don't have it on my own internet, but...
Oh, we don't need this, though.
Nope.
Well, we do for hearing the...
Okay.
Okay.
But can... Alright, so... Why don't you say hello to him and see if
All right, Michael, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
He just said something.
Yep, we're good. Okay, give us a sec. We're going to get going here.
Do you have any questions ready?
Hello, Bigfoot enthusiasts. Scott here from Blue Mountain oops, I did it again. Squatch America.
And Hannah, domestic goddess at the paddy wagon.
So,
I have a question for everyone. Since he so cutely forgot that we're now Squatch America, is anyone in the world having a problem writing 2021 on their documents? Or are you finding that writing anything but 2020 is the easiest thing you've ever done? Put it in the chat. Are you struggling with writing the new date, or are you good? I am so good. I haven't even had one instance where I accidentally wrote 2020.
all right, so we got a really great show for you tonight, ladies and gentlemen. But before we get started,
Renee says not so far.
welcome to 2021, and hopefully this year is better than last. And we've got a lot of great things coming up this year planned. Here shortly, we are headed to Texas to do some Bigfooting there.
In the big thicket.
In the big thicket, and then we've actually got permission to go spend a few nights on the Crabtree Land in Falk, Arkansas. That's going to be a blast.
Are we going to find the Falk monster?
We are going to find us a Falk monster. So we'll be there in a few weeks. But meantime, welcome to our first show of the year. And
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. And we have a new segment I'm going to throw into these, and it's called the Meme of the Week. And this week is, if your friends don't believe in Bigfoot, then Bigfoot is the only friend you need.
You should put me in charge of that. Actually, we should get Mike J from Northeast Oregon.
Oh, that's where I'm stealing them all, Mike.
Oh, Mike, you let me down with that one. He has the best Bigfoot memes. He really does.
He really does. So, tonight we have a special guest, and we've chatted a little bit to get some people in here. Hi, everybody. I noticed
We
in the
have
chat.
Renee, Dale,
Dale,
and
Craig, and a few others.
And Craig is on his way.
Okay, that's awesome. So, what we have tonight is we have what I like to consider a legend in the Bigfoot world, and his name's Michael Rugg, and he runs the Bigfoot Discovery Museum in Felton, and
Okay, are you ready?
I think I am getting there. We had to do a little quick work around here.
It's quite all right.
Everybody?
First of all, I want
So-
to say, in response to something I heard on there, and I'll bet Michael would agree with me, there is no, I don't care what we do in our lives, I don't care what we accomplish or who we know or anything like that, there is nothing better than your grandkids thinking you're a rock star.
That is awesome. So,
Nothing
ladies
better.
and gentlemen,
because our grandkids think we're rock
Yeah,
stars.
true.
I don't know why, but anyway.
so
Johnny says there's no audio. And the people are saying there's no audio.
oh no,
Is there no audio?
there was no audio on that. I don't want to show it again. Hey, oh,
What happened?
I don't know. Okay, how about now? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to give you Mike Rugg. Mike, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Let's see if we can get our audience to hear you. How's that?
So, audience people, Johnny says there's audio now.
Okay, perfect. So, so you're in Felton. How's that?
Well, Phil's is a very small town, and the mountain near Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz is a big well-known town. It has a
You're
boardwalk
not on speaker.
and a major pier. And we didn't know, overall, the people of this area were not aware that there was a Bigfoot presence here until we opened the museum. Because as soon as the museum opened up and the word hit the street, the locals started coming in with their sighting reports.
Oh,
And
that's
I
what-
was blown away because I didn't think there were any Bigfoot left here anymore. But we found out there are, and we've gone out and we have, we videotaped one, but it won't convince a skeptic because it's far away and dark. You can't see any details. And we also recorded their screams a few times, so we know they're here. And I have people that report into me now from various parts of Central California that tell me their Bigfoot events, and stories that they get from people as well. So we're chronicling a lot of data on the Central California Bigfoot.
Oh, that is great, and I know how you feel because I got a photo of a Bigfoot 2 years ago, and it was a long ways away, and it was one of those blurry photos. I know I saw it with my own eyes, but anytime
And your buddy with you saw it.
yeah, my buddy with me saw it, and if you were to show everybody the picture, they just kind of roll their eyes at you. So I know exactly how you feel.
Oh yeah.
So, well, Hannah and I actually we have spent a lot of time in that area. We used to work summers at a place called Redwood Glen. It's a campground, like a kids camp in Scotts Valley. So that's in your area, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we've actually spent a lot of time there.
Nothing smells as good as a Northern California summer.
It's good.
It's true. It's true. They have their own
I'll
smell.
go along with that.
All right.
Well, what's beautiful here are the redwood trees. They're very unique as far as the world goes, and we love the redwood trees.
Oh yeah, it's a beautiful,
I
beautiful
think
area.
the Sasquatch love them too.
Yep. And all the times that we've spent there, we never ever got a chance. I tried several times to get to the museum there, but I have never got there, and it's still on my bucket list. So if the world ever opens up again, we will be back there.
Yeah.
I did go to the what is it? The mystery spot that's there. That was kind of fun.
Yeah.
But so
because the audio failed on our video presentation, could you tell us a little bit about the history of the Discovery Museum? Tell us, how that came about. Just give us the story behind that.
Okay. Well, the Discovery Museum is it's an idea that it was kind of in the back of my mind most of my life, starting from when I was a child. And ever since I was a little kid, old enough to walk, let's say, I've had a fascination with apes. Chimps, gorillas, apes of all kinds, orangutans. And I used to I talked my parents into taking me to the zoo, and I would hang out by the apes and watch them. And then I read every Tarzan novel from cover to cover. There's, somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 of them. They're much better than the movies ever were. And so I had this massive fascination. And then I ended up, after I got out of school, I came back to Felton to kind of help out with the family. My mother was still here, and there was some property here that she let me use, which is now the museum property. And I opened up a little sort of an art gallery and so forth, and I was doing freelance graphic arts out of here. And then eventually I was offered a full-time job in Silicon Valley. So I was sitting in downtown San Jose, pushing pixels for big corporations until the dot-com boom ended at the turn of the century. And that's when, we were talking about YK2 and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And lots and lots of businesses went under or downsized. So the one I worked at, the branding agency I worked at, they went from 40 down to 4, and I didn't make the cut. So I was then without a job. So I was thinking, well, I'll go back to my freelance over in Felton. But I had also noticed that over the years, some of the people that I met back in the day, when I was doing Bigfoot research more out and away, I was seeing that they were dying, like Rene DeHind and people like that. And I said, oh, geez, these guys are dying, and they never got the chance to prove that they were right. That's really sad. Well, I'm going to see if I can make sure that I don't do the same thing. And the only way I could do that would be to work at it full time. So I decided to go ahead and reopen my little shop in Felton, but instead of being an art gallery and a graphic studio, I decided to make it into a Bigfoot museum. And that's what happened. And it's funny because after I did that, I was reading an excerpt in one of John Green's books. It was a description about a lady in Eureka, California, Northern California, back in 1950, who said she saw a Bigfoot walking along the edge of the Eel River. Well, my dad once had a sawmill on the Eel River, and so our family spent time up there, but it was before I was born. I only heard stories about that. But when my parents were wanting to go camping and fishing, which they did quite a bit because my dad was an outdoorsman, and he was born on a farm in Oregon, they would go back up to the Eel River to Humboldt County, and we would camp there and fish there, because he already knew the best fishing holes in the Eel River. Well, one day while we were camping on the Eel River, he caught a bunch of trout, and he and my mom were going to cook them up for breakfast on the camp stove. Well, I was 4 years old at the time, and I looked at those dead fish in the stove, and I said, "Oh, I'm not going to eat that. Do you have any pancakes?" And my father said, "No, you're going to eat fish just like the rest of us." And I said, "Oh my!" So when they weren't looking, I took off and I boycotted breakfast. I left. I walked away on a trail. The trail followed the edge of the river. I got out of sight of my parents. I don't know how far away I was, but I couldn't see them anymore. And then I noticed this sandbar that was sticking out into the middle of the river. So I walked out into the sandbar where I could see in more directions. I looked across the river and downstream and upstream. And then when I looked back towards the forest where I had come from, I noticed a gigantic hairy person standing there. And he was covered in head to foot with long hair and had no clothing other than a shirt and hanging off of one shoulder. It reminded me when in the Hulk movies, when the Hulk's out and he turns into the Hulk and he loses his clothes.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit of them hanging on his body. It was kind of like that. And so I stood there in disbelief, staring at this very large, hairy man with a shirt on his shoulder, until I heard my mother screaming, "Mikey, where are you?" So anyway, I realized my mother was looking for me, and I had been away from camp for a while. So I decided I better get back. So I turned and I ran back to camp. And then when I got there, I told my parents that I just saw a big hairy man. And I asked them to come and see it because I had questions. kids have lots of questions. Well, my parents were nice enough to follow me, and they went back with me to that sandbar that bore very little clothes. So that was my personal experience, and I remembered it in a flashback memory. So, of course, skeptics will tell me, you just made that up because it's wishful thinking, and I have to admit, it could be. But I'll tell you what, after I talked to about 150 eyewitnesses in this museum, I decided to give my permission to say that I saw a Bigfoot. That's what I remember, and I think I did. But I know now hundreds of people who have, so there's no doubt in my mind anymore. Any doubts I had are long gone.
Yeah, that's kind of the same with me too. I kind of got into it through my work. Actually, I'm an anthropologist, and I worked with Native American tribes all over the United States, and every one of them had a legend. So I started looking into it, and I actually spent some time talking with Dr. Jeff Meldrum, and he was explaining to me foot casts and morphology and stuff, and I started doing a little research and getting some reports from people, and then I finally saw one. It took me like 25 years to do so, but I did. And
where'd you see it?
I grew up in eastern Oregon in the Blue Mountains. You're probably familiar with that area. I grew up in Baker City, and we were in the Elkhorn Mountains behind Baker City. It was part of the Blue Mountains, probably about 15 miles south of where Paul Freeman got that video, but a whole lot of years later. So yeah, and you said your dad was from Oregon. What part of Oregon was he from?
Gresham.
Gresham. Okay, so he's over in the Cascade area. Yeah, I grew up in the Blue Mountains, and of course we heard stories about them my whole life. In the blues.
Yeah.
So, well, that's pretty cool.
So, right now, the reason that we wanted to get you on, first of all, in the chat, has anyone here ever been, anyone of our listeners, have you ever been to the Bigfoot Discovery Museum? Did you know about the Bigfoot Discovery Museum? And if you haven't been there, is it on your bucket list? And if it's not on your bucket list, why not? I want all those answers in the chat. But the reason that we've got you on is I can't remember what exactly I was doing. I know. I was actually talking to someone on Facebook, and I went over to their page, and they had your GoFundMe listed because the Bigfoot Discovery Museum is under threat right now. Can you tell us why you are in danger of closing?
Well, we've been closed by the virus for nearly a year. Ever since March, and we haven't been able to open. So when you have a business that's generating monthly expenses and no income to counteract them, it gets a little dicey. So and I've used up all my extra money. I don't have any. I'm broke now, and I'm just doing all I can to keep this together and keep this property, so I can do the museum. But the GoFundMe project so far has saved me, or I would be out of here now.
Well, that's great that that's working. But for our listeners, in the description of the video down below, we have links going to the GoFundMe for the Bigfoot Discovery Museum. And so what we want you folks to do, if you can spare a dime.
In fact,
please.
For the first time since we started, we will not be plugging our own merch that you find at squatchamerica.com. If you, we would rather actually have you go make a donation to that GoFundMe project so that we can keep the Discovery Museum open. Knocking on wood that the world's going to reopen up. Knocking a lot on everyone. Knock on wood together, please.
Yes, please.
This is just a little bit crazy, and when the world reopens up, my hope is that the beautiful things will still be around, and quite frankly, Bigfoot is a beautiful thing. and learning about the mysteries of the world is a beautiful thing.
Right.
So,
I
anyway.
agree 100% with that.
Right.
We've had Dr. Meldrum here a couple of times. Because back when we were operating, we would have events.
Mm-hmm.
We've had Dave Paulides has been here too.
Oh, awesome.
I know him personally. Because he's a former policeman, so he has a certain attitude about him because of that, I'm afraid.
Yeah. That's what I've heard.
He's written all these missing persons books,
mm-hmm.
and I heard someone contact him via George Knapp on a radio interview on Coast to Coast, and they asked him directly. George Knapp said, "Well, David, you have written 2 Bigfoot books, and then you've written now about 5 books of missing people, and we're starting to assume." Because of that maybe these missing people have been taken by Bigfoot. And his answer to that was, well, first of all, he said, so when people ask me my opinion on that, I don't usually answer because I don't know. And I'm not about to say something, that off the top of my head that I don't have any facts to back up. So I don't know. But if you were to push me up against a wall and say, do I think that the majority of these missing people are people who have been taken by Bigfoot, I would have to say no. He said he would associate the missing people more with the cattle mutilation events than with Bigfoot events. The cattle mutilations, of course, they were happening in the Four Corners area, especially back in the 60s. They were finding cattle that had been exsanguinated and they'd had laser surgery done on them. Mm-hmm. And it was assumed by the people who researched it that it was done either by our own military or by extraterrestrials. And so he said he associated the missing people more with the cattle mutilations than he did with Bigfoot.
Huh, interesting.
But I had a man call me about a month ago or so. He called me from Florida, and he said that he spends a lot of time in the woods, and that he's been at 5 or 6 different locations where he has seen Sasquatches. And then he offered that the Sasquatches eat people, and that's the way he said it. Sasquatches eat people.
Wow.
Yeah. He volunteered that he could meet me in Nevada and take me somewhere and show me where they are. But we want to be very careful because they eat people. Now, on the other hand, I have a man who came in the museum who lives down in Fresno, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours south of us.
Yep.
Southeast.
Yeah, I know where that's at. I used to live in Merced.
Okay. So you know about the mountains above Fresno,
Yep.
Shaver Lake, and so forth. Well, he said that up in those near Shaver Lake in the mountains there, he has befriended 5 Sasquatches.
Hmm.
And he says he communicates them through telepathy. And he says they're friends. So here's 2 sides of the coin.
Oh,
Here's
yeah.
the guy that says the Bigfoot eat people. Here's the guy who says he's got numerous Bigfoot buddies.
Yeah,
So,
it's
what do you do with that?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because in my research, being a Native American anthropologist, I have spent a lot of time speaking with a whole bunch of different tribes and talking about their legends. And it's kind of interesting. About half of the tribes that I've talked to refer their names that they call Bigfoot, refer to them as cannibal, basically. They eat people. And it's kind of interesting that the other half of the tribes that I've spoken to refer to them as like a spiritual creature. as something mythical and spiritual, and or like
guardians of the mountain,
or guardians, yeah, basically, yeah. So those stories go back a lot longer than the white man's been here on both sides of the coin, like you just said.
So the Native Americans, so they also have a mixed bag.
They do.
Some of them think of them as cannibals, and some of them think of them as protectors.
Yep.
So maybe they're both.
Maybe they are. Maybe they're just like people. There's good people and there's bad people.
Exactly.
And the bad people tend to get way more press.
Yep.
Bad people what?
Get way more press.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to leave that sitting right there.
So if we keep the, I'm hoping and praying that you keep the Bigfoot Museum open, and I know that have you ever met Cliff Barrickman?
Oh, sure.
Okay, I've met him a few times. Cliff and I hang out at a couple conferences we both spoke at, and I have got stuff that I've sent to his museum, and he's got a few interesting artifacts in his museum, and I haven't been to yours. I meant, you guys, what do you have for interesting artifacts in your museum?
Well, we have, of course, plaster cast footprint copies.
Right.
We've got copies of Freeman casts and copies of the Patterson cast, and we have skull replicas.
Okay.
We got a Gigantopithecus skull. It was made by Grover Krantz.
Right.
And we have a Meganthropus skull also made by Krantz. We have a gorilla skull and a chimp skull and Australopithecus skull. And
okay.
We have what else? And then we have, of course, pop culture. We have a whole section dedicated to tabloid newspapers and games and comic books and all that kind of Bigfoot stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't until a couple years ago. I mean, I've been doing this for 25 years, and it was only a couple years ago I found out that was actually at one time they made a board game, a Bigfoot board game.
Yeah. Well, first they did it as an Abominable Snowman game.
Yeah.
And then they reissued it as a Bigfoot game.
That's interesting. That's cool.
It's called repurposing.
Yeah, repurposing.
Milton Bradley. I've got both of those.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. No.
And I've got a $6 million man stuff.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
It's kind of like the International Cryptozoological Museum.
Yeah, we went. We were in Maine this summer, and we went to Lauren Coleman's. Yeah, Lauren Coleman's place. And
I'd love to visit there.
Yeah, he's got a lot of stuff in his too. So.
A lot of pop culture stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been in touch with him, but I've never been into his museum.
Yeah, he wasn't there when we were there, but we did see his museum, and he's got all the same stuff. It sounds like. So I'll tell you what, if we run across anything, we'll send it to you. In fact, we got this summer in Maine. We spent the summer in Maine, and we found where some footprints were. And got it's almost like a lock of hair. It's like a dreadlock almost of hair.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And we sent that to Dr. Jeff, and he hasn't got back to me on it yet. But we're seeing what that is. But my initial look at it looks like the type specimens they have where it doesn't have the medulla in it. So it's a pretty solid, and that was the first clue that it's possibly a Bigfoot hair. But but we're gonna get that sent. Well, we got that sent into Dr. Jeff, and then we're gonna get some DNA done on it and see what happens. So
I had a tooth. I had a tooth for a while.
wow.
That's a whole comedy of errors.
Yeah.
Part of that tooth went to Melba Ketchum, but didn't get used.
Oh wow.
Part of the tooth went to Brian Sykes, but didn't get used.
Oh no.
And the parts that he got are now in a cryptozoology museum in Switzerland.
Wow.
And then the rest of it that I had, the tooth got broken up by a dentist when he was supposed to be taking stuff from the pulp without breaking it, and he ended up breaking it. And I had a little jar with the broken tooth pieces in it. Somebody stole it out of the museum.
Oh no. Wow.
Yeah, Men in Black, I suppose.
Yeah. More than likely Men in Black.
Probably.
Came to confiscate the evidence.
Yep. Yep. Can't have any of that laying around.
Yeah.
That's okay. Nobody pays attention to evidence anyway.
Yeah, we got.
In anything.
Yeah. We actually had something that a gentleman gave me that I sent to. Well, actually, I gave it to Cliff. It's in his museum now. But it was a tree that had been twisted off. It was about 3 inches around, and the guy had the forethought just to cut the tree off. The stump that was sticking up, he cut it off because it had it had fingerprints in it, and you could put all 5 fingers on it. You can't reach around it with your hand because it's much bigger, you know, but it had all 5 fingerprints on it, where it had grabbed the tree and smashed the bark and twisted the tree off.
Oh, cool.
So that's in
That
Cliff's
sounds like
museum.
a winner.
Yep. So.
And our AI is talking at us.
Yeah. Well, gosh, I know California is probably the worst lockdown place. Well, California, Oregon, and New York, I think, is the 3 bad ones.
Washington hot on their tails.
Yeah.
Is there any indication when you guys might be able to reopen?
Well, yeah, but I don't think we're. There was about a 2-week time when we could have reopened, but I didn't bother because we were finishing up on some remodeling.
Uh-huh.
And then they turned right around and closed us again. So it's just as well I didn't bother.
Yeah. Well, that's
So
horrible.
the way I look at it, we're not going to be able to reopen probably until these vaccines get spread around.
Right.
And we get what do they call it? Herd? The herd vaccine?
The herd immunity, yeah.
Herd immunity. So I don't know if we're going to be able to open before that happens.
Oh, wow.
But
So.
we're ready to do so. I've got a little thing that I can stand behind that protects me from the germs.
Okay.
That my face mask and my little see-through plastic mask also.
Oh, that's good.
So,
Okay.
so I'll be ready to open as soon as I can.
All right.
So in the meantime, just everyone who's watching and listening, whether you're listening live or if you're catching this on replay, because that's the beauty of YouTube, the GoFundMe link is in our show description, and right now there's actually the financial goal for this is $92,000. They've raised about $10,000. Now, before we all panic and think, oh my gosh, there's no way we can help with that. Yes, there is. And having been a professional fundraiser, we've done professional fundraising. There have got to be 92,000 people, actually 82,000 people out there right now that can give $1. And so, and I just said that to demonstrate that this is very, very possible to give the museum the resources they need so they can make it to a time when they can reopen.
I was.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, after you give your donation, share that link on your social media. I know you all have Facebook pages.
Yep.
And so share it on your Facebook. Get public about, you know what? Yeah, I believe in Bigfoot. I have every reason to believe in Bigfoot. And right now, the current world situation has shut down really a treasure in the Bigfoot research community. And so we want to help him keep open. The more we share this, the more money is going to come in. The longer, the more likely it is that Michael's baby here is going to be able to make it until we can get active again. Because I tell you what, that whole area is on our list to go check out. We've been wanting to go to send back to Northern California for a long time to do some Bigfooting.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll be certain to get down there when we can. Craig, you need to be on.
Well, when that GoFundMe first started, I was coming up against a mortgage due on the property that I was going to have to pay off, which was $92,000.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened was somebody volunteered to buy the mortgage. So another family bought the mortgage, and so now they gave me 4 more years to pay it back.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
So the immediate threat is gone. I got the better part of 4 years to try and gather that money.
Well, we need
So every
to.
little bit helps.
Yeah, we need to help you get that money. And if you're not on Facebook, and I understand why people aren't, if you're on Parler or some of the other alternative social medias, or if you just have an email list and you can hit up your friends saying, hey guys, you know I'm into Bigfoot. Send $5 to this GoFundMe, you know.
Yep.
So honestly, GoFundMe, it's like the best grassroots fundraising method that we have, and we really want to support the Discovery Museum.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome very much. And honestly, we can't wait until we can get back into California so we can go back. We love that. We truly love that whole area.
Mm-hmm.
That whole area is one of our favorite places. Probably one of the only places in California we like to be. Anything?
Yeah, we actually, I don't know if you're familiar with where Mariposa is.
Sure.
That we actually lived there for a lot of years, and we had some property up in the mountains in Mariposa. We were like 15 miles from the front gate of Yosemite, and I actually got some recordings of some tree knocks in the Yosemite area one night there.
Cool.
So.
Yeah, we've recorded knocks. We recorded hunting parties. We heard a hunting party formulated one night. There was a Sasquatch that gave off 3 cries. It was like Morse code. And then it was responded with by 2 other individuals. And their cries sounded like Goofy coming down the Matterhorn. Yeah, Louie.
Yeah.
And then we heard a pack of coyotes join in.
Uh-huh.
And then they all took off together and went through this canyon hunting. And they'd come to a new house, ranch house, and the local dog there would start to bark at the coyotes, catch the smell of the Bigfoot, and get quiet. And that exact thing happened over and over again as you can hear them going through the valley. So a lot of the dogs are aware of Bigfoot, and they're aware to be quiet when they come around. Because the Bigfoot want to pass through the backyards, and they want the dogs to wake up to people. And then we had an occasion, there's a quarry at the top of the hill right above our museum. It's 3 miles uphill to the quarry. The street dead ends there. So one night at midnight, we went up to the quarry. And on the way up, we were quite surprised to see about 3 dozen deer eating flowers in the front yards of the houses on the way up to the quarry. Well, I've been operating at this location, like I said, since back in '68. I've never seen more than 1 or 2 deer at a time come across the road at this location. That night there were several dozen. So we were curious to why that had occurred until we got to the quarry. When we got out and we went into the quarry, you have to go through the gate where it says no trespassing. And we just go ahead and go on in. And then we found a spot on a pile of gravel above the pond. There's a pond there because, they're always using water at quarries to rinse the gravel and stuff. So we got up above the pond where you could hear the ducks feeding all through the night, So that's a special location. So we sat up there, and when we first got there, we heard coming from approximately 5 miles north of us up the valley a scream like the one we heard the night that they formed that hunting party. We recognized the scream. So we almost stopped and went up further up the valley to that location, but decided instead to stick it out at the quarry since we had already recorded those other screams. And sure enough, at 4 in the morning, a hunting party was at the quarry. And the hunting party completely surrounded us. So we had coyotes on all sides of us. And we were starting to worry that they might attack, because it seemed like that's what was going to happen. And then all of a sudden we heard this guttural sound, which I take it was the Bigfoot. And the coyotes got quiet, and we all got up and left. And they headed south towards Santa Cruz after the deer.
Wow.
That hunting party chased the deer 5 miles down the valley till they came to the quarry and were expecting to find the deer there, and instead they found us. And then the Squatch made sure they didn't attack us. How do you like that? That was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
It was a little scary too.
Oh, I bet it was. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, one of the scariest encounters I had was we had heard some whistles, almost like a really high-pitched, weird whistle in the woods, and then we heard what sounded like chest beating. Like, I don't know if you have ever heard that, or ever heard anybody ever give you a report of that before, but it sounded like, a gorilla beating on its chest, just thump 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 thump. And at that time we heard that chest beating. I happened to I had my night vision on, and I was actually looking directly at this cow elk who was feeding just about 50 yards from us. And it was dark, and we'd been sitting there, and she wandered in, and she didn't even know we were there. And her ears really perked up when that chest beating happened, and then she turned and just ran away like it was. And my partner and I, we talked about it, and we thought, are they hurting them? Is that what they're doing with the chest beating and the whistles and stuff? Are they hurting the elk or hurting the deer? And that story kind of reminded me of that. It's like, are they coming through here? Yep.
I wouldn't doubt it.
So,
I wouldn't doubt they'd be hurting me.
Yeah, so, wow, that's interesting. Well, we've got about 10 minutes left here, Mike. Do you have any other stories, or like that you might want to share with us, or any?
Oh, I got stories that go on forever.
Okay.
I'll tell you another interesting story. Recently, I met up with a guy who he lives in Hollister. It's about 50 miles south of here.
Yep.
Down near San Juan Bautista, where there's an old adobe. It's a park.
Yep.
And he does pest control work, in that area. And he told me that he's been doing that for about 10 years. And he says that over the course of the decade in which he's been doing pest control in the greater San Juan Bautista area, he's met up with 5 or 6 retired individuals, men who were mostly former military types, who told him that they had, on more than one occasion, or at least all of them had an occasion, to see a hairy wild man walking along the road or next to the creek in the area. So he told me, he said, well, so I wasn't a skeptic because these guys convinced me that they were genuine, that they believed they had seen this. So he said, I wasn't a total skeptic, but I wasn't a total believer either until last Friday when one ran across the street right in front of my truck. I hit it with the headlights. It was 9 feet tall and covered in black hair. So he said he went down to the creek nearby. There was a creek very close at hand. Next day in the daytime, when he could see better, went and walked along the edge of the creek, and sure enough, he found some humongous tracks. So he videotaped the tracks, and then he put them on his Facebook page, contacted me. I looked on the Facebook page and told him, well, you seem to have some Bigfoot tracks there. And he came to the museum and we met officially. And since then, I get a call from them every few weeks. And he's got a new Bigfoot story to tell because he now knows they're real. And he's out trying to find more people and interviewing people who have also seen them and helping us, put the data together. So recently he contacted me, and he said that he talked to a ranger, and they were discussing a cattle ranch 25 miles south of Hollister, Central California. And on that ranch, 3 of the cows had their heads pulled off, actually pulled right off their bodies. And that everybody was freaked out and trying to figure out what in the hell could have done that. And that at some point while this was being discussed at hand, a van pulled up onto the property, and 6 guys got out of the van dressed in military uniforms, but none of the uniforms had any markings. So it was impossible to tell what branch of the service they were from. And they had a couple of drones they brought with them. And they divided up and went out in the woods around the ranch with the drones. And they were gone for a while. Next thing you know, they returned to the van. And they got in with the 2 drones and themselves. And they told the ranger there that they shouldn't be bothered with any more heads being pulled off, that they had taken care of that. And that was it, and they left.
Wow.
So I have another story similar to that. And this story was told to me by my nephew. This happened like 20 years ago or more. My nephew was still, he was a teenager at the time, and he was doing yard work for, various people around the area to earn money for school and stuff. And he was working for a guy who lives in a Masonic park. Everybody in this little neighborhood is a Mason. And the houses there in the park are situated right next to the San Lorenzo River. Same river that passes by the museum. Just a couple hundred yards from the museum. So he told my nephew that he was having a problem with some kind of a vandal coming around the house at night, getting into the garbage and causing a little bit of damage here and there. And he referred to it as an ape. He said, there's some kind of ape coming around and getting in my garbage. So as the story goes, he contacted the sheriff and reported this. And one day a black van pulled up in front of his house. 2 guys wearing black shorts and with 45 caliber sidearms with some kind of equipment got out of the van, told him to stay in the house. They went down under his house and to the river near his house and there and about. And they were there for a while. checking things out, and then finally they came back to the house. They told him, "You're not going to have to worry about the ape bothering your garbage anymore." Oh, and by the way, if anybody asks about us, we'd rather it wasn't talked about. So please don't tell anybody that we were here. And they left.
Wow.
Wow.
So is there a subset of the men in black that go out and look into Sasquatches that are out of control?
Oh, I absolutely believe there is. Yeah.
Makes you wonder.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. You know,
The best way to get people not to believe in something is to make a hit movie out of it.
exactly.
So there you go.
Yeah. No, Hannah actually she grew up in Yakima, and when Mount St. Helens went off, there were stories about helicopters pulling dead Bigfoot bodies off the mountain there. And she was there for that one. That was kind of interesting. I don't know if you've heard that story.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So.
Yes, indeed.
So, well, it's about time we wrap things up. Thank you so much for being with us again, all of our listeners. We had a few people join us. I have no idea what that was. We had a few people join us late on. We have been talking with Michael Rugg, the founder and inspiration behind the Bigfoot Discovery Museum in Felton, California, and we are trying to help them raise money to stay open because the pandemic situation has kind of, it's kicked a lot of business butts, especially those that aren't considered essential, and for whatever reason, finding out how the world works is not essential.
Yes.
So, go figure. Anyway, so in our show notes, the description, there's a link to the Discovery Museum GoFundMe. Please consider making a small or a not so small donation to that. And spread the word. Send your links out. Send the link out on your social media, in your email. Talk it up. And we certainly will be in our next newsletter from Squatch America. We'll be putting a feature about the museum in there with a link. So anything that we as a Bigfoot community can do to keep this place open, it's true. Now you can consider me woo-woo, but if we put good out there, it's going to come back to us. So don't be stingy. Anyway, so
with that, thank you very much, Mike, for being with us this night.
All right. Thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, wonderful.
All right.
And as always,
Okay.
Maybe we could talk again some other time.
Awesome.
We
We absolutely will. We might get you on just to share stories.
Yes, and we'll figure out the video a little more ahead of time.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So here,
As always,
our job is at Squatch America is to investigate the unexplained.
not to explain the uninvestigated. Thank you and good night. Oh, no, it was clean.